Issue: whether the appellant owed a non-delegable duty of care to TNB, a personal duty to ensure that reasonable care was taken by the third-party contractors in doing the excavation works. These are the facts. The case involves Tenaga Nasional Bhd, TNB, claiming for costs and expenses incurred due to damage caused to its underground cable by excavation works carried out by third-party contractors hired by the defendants, who are the homeowners. TNB argued that the defendants owed it a non-delegable duty of care as they had appointed the third-party contractors for the excavation. The High Court found the first defendant liable despite the immediate tortfeasor being the third-party contractor. The Court of Appeal affirmed the findings of the High Court and held that the case fell within the category of non-delegable duty of care in relation to highway and hazard cases. Leave to appeal was granted on the following three questions of law. 1. Whether as a matter of policy, routine residential construction work carried out by a homeowner through its independent contractors is so extraordinarily hazardous as to impose a non-delegable duty of care on the homeowner to a public utility company, namely TNB, for the negligence of those independent contractors. 2. If the answer to the first question was in the negative, whether there is a special relationship between the homeowner and TNB which satisfies the criteria of the second category, described in Woodland v. Essex County Council, Woodland, such as to impose a non-delegable duty of care on the homeowner in respect of the negligence of its independent contractors, and 3. Whether non-delegable duty of care is a cause of action that must be expressly pleaded particularizing the basis on which the duty is said to arise or whether it is a matter of law which may be raised during submissions. The decision, allowing the appeal. The tort of negligence usually requires personal fault, meaning a defendant is not typically held responsible for the acts of others. However, non-delegable duty of care is an exception to this rule. It is a common law tort where a defendant who delegates their duty to an independent contractor will still be held liable for any negligence by that contractor. This imposes a personal duty on the defendant to ensure that the work delegated to others is performed with care, and cannot be discharged by hiring independent contractors. Woodland categorized the first category of non-delegable duty of care as referring to extraordinarily hazardous activities, regardless of where they were carried out. This category was not creating a new class, but rather explaining earlier cases that dealt with creating hazards in public places. The non-delegable duty of care should only be applied in limited and exceptional circumstances because it imposes a stringent duty that may be difficult to fulfill. The present thinking is to do away with the categorization of what is extraordinarily hazardous, which is considered as arbitrary categorization, but to make an assessment of the activity and whether there are precautions available to remove or mitigate the hazard. The excavation works carried out did not fall under the non-delegable duty of care. The necessary precautionary measure was to conduct a utility mapping exercise before the excavation, which was not done by the third-party contractors. If this exercise had been carried out, the contractors would have been aware of the location of TNB's underground cables, and the damage to the cables could have been avoided. The court ruled that Section 37(12)(a) of the Electricity Supply Act 1990 did not impose a non-delegable duty of care on homeowners, and that the duty to obtain approval from TNB rested with third-party consultants and contractors, not the defendants as homeowners. The provision only prohibits carrying out works in the vicinity of electrical installations without TNB's authority, and failure to obtain such approval results in a penalty. The excavation works in this case were not considered to be extraordinarily hazardous, and therefore did not attract a non-delegable duty of care from the homeowner to TNB. The excavation works were routine residential construction works carried out by independent contractors, and there was no evidence of substantial risk from the renovation works, even if they were done properly. Therefore, the homeowner did not owe a non-delegable duty of care to TNB for the negligence of the independent contractors. The court must consider whether it is fair and reasonable to impose a non-delegable duty of care after fulfilling the threshold requirements. It is not fair to impose such a duty in the case of routine residential construction works, as it would expose homeowners to an indeterminate liability for the actions of their independent contractors. Therefore, the answer to the question 1 was negative. The non-delegable duty of care is a positive duty to protect one from harm, which is fundamental in the law of negligence. The phrase, the positive duty to protect another from harm, is not to be confused with the defining features of the special relationship which exists in establishing the second category of cases in Woodland, which states, the defendant delegated to a third party a function which is an integral part of the positive duty. The point or issue under the second category in this respect is not about positive duty, per se, but the defendant delegating to a third party a function which is an integral part of the positive duty of the defendants. Hence, the court declined to answer question 2, as there was no issue of confusion between the first and second categories. The essence of a non-delegable duty is a duty to ensure that care is taken. TNB had sufficiently pleaded the essence of a non-delegable duty of care. Hence, the court declined to answer question 3. To know more,